My name is Valerie Hancock. I am a ceramic artist located in Corinth, Texas, just south of Denton. And I make functional thrown and altered work that is high fired to cone 10 in either a soda kiln or in oxidation. Today, I am going to be demoing for you how I alter my pieces and then how I cut the rims. And then make a hollow hand-built handle on a mug. So things like this. Welcome to my studio. So I have here a cup that I have already thrown and trimmed. I do all of my altering after everything has been trimmed, so that way the alterations can grow out of the trimmed foot ring. So that means that I trim as wet as I can get away with. So my work is porcelain. I think I forgot to mention that earlier. Here we go. So the first thing that I do is I draw in where I want those alterations to go. Normally somewhere around where the middle of the belly is on this cup. So I'm going to draw in some pieces. I've got just a rough outline of where that alteration is going to take place. And that just helps get me started. And I'm going to take my sponge, push in where those drawn lines are. This gives a little bit more clay a push and pull. I'll be pushing it out from the inside next, but I like the change in direction, how the cup starts flat and then it goes in before it eventually comes back out. So just using my sponge to push those lines back in. This also kind of delineates on the inside where those alterations are going. So it gives me a good view when I go to alter on the inside where those line and markings are. And that's something that's really important to me, is once this is finished being altered, the inside is displaced. It's a different shape, it's not round. So when the cup or bowl or whatever is filled with liquid or food, it changes the shape of that liquid and food into something other than round, and makes different shapes. And I think that it's really interesting how the food can interact with those alterations. Now that I have my lines drawn in from the outside, I'm going to take my sponge, and this is where I'm now going to start pushing those walls out from the inside. So taking my sponge, trying to think about how this alteration can grow out of that foot nice and gently, because I want a good even curve from this foot ring all the way down to here, so that it's nice and fluid and graceful. Going all the way around on this cup, putting those alterations in. My cup is still pretty soft right now, so I have to be gentle that I'm not pushing other areas out of alignment. And there is a lot of going back, pushing and pulling and redefining areas that I may have accidentally altered that shouldn't have been. Now that I have those alterations in place, everything has been pushed in when I drew it in with my sponge, and then pushed out from the inside, but it still feels fairly flat's not the right word, but I don't have the direction pull that I want. I like that in and out in the conversation that happens between those two. So what I want to do is push in all of these little points so that it doesn't just feel full. There's hills and valleys and different areas to explore. So I'm going to use my fingers to push in on these points while keeping my hand on the inside to pull that alteration bubble up because I don't want it to sink down, and it's pretty soft right now, so it could easily sink. I have woken the clay up a little bit, so it's a little fluid right now. Okay. So having those areas where it pushes back in just gives a little extra emphasis to those pieces. But since it is so soft at this point, I then like to go back and make sure that nothing collapsed as I was pushing in the points. So just filling out those spots one more time, getting the fullness in the correct spot where I like it. And paying attention again to that line from the foot ring, how it follows down and then swells back into the cup, making sure that this is a nice, graceful line. I don't want any bumps and jagged areas. So I make a few different styles of handles. I have this 2-finger handle and a 1-finger handle. And then these with the little knobs on the bottom, I call them my bustle cups. Like Victorian era women's dresses had the bustles on the back. So these are what that reminds me of, these bustle cups. All of my handles are hand built with slabs and they are hollow. So we're gonna make this 2-finger handle right here. I have templates for all of my handles. This is the template for my 2-finger handle. It's cut out of tar paper so that way it lasts quite a while. Just gonna cut this out of, I have a thin slab here. When I was cutting out my handle slab, since I'm going to have edges joining together, it's important to me that they overlap so I get a good secure joint. So when I was cutting it out, I was making sure that I had on the sides that are going to be joining together, that I had this 45-degree angle here and then again here, so that when I go to line them up, they will meet together with a bevel instead of a butt joint. So I'm going to gently take this slab and start bringing those ends together. So take my serrated rib, score those edges. And get them wet. I'm going to take these ends and start pressing them together. Okay. And I want to join them, just have this pointy tool on the inside while I'm holding that seam on the outside so that I have some compression. And then just go back and smooth and compress that joint on the outside. To the other side. Making sure that that joint is compressed and nicely joined. All right, so I have my handle here. I need to make it from this cylinder into a handle shape. So I am going to gently compress to make it more oval instead of round. And as I'm doing that, I am encouraging the handle to start walking into that handle shape. I want to gently bring those ends together instead of just going flap, because that'll cause a lot of cracking right here in the middle. It's all about encouraging the clay to go where it needs to go to keep things from cracking. So I am compressing these sides together a little bit, and it is thinning out quite a bit. And I've had a lot of people go, well, aren't you just closing off that hollow section? And yes, it's getting real thin, but there is still a little hollow pocket along these edges that continues from top to bottom. So that way it's still one solid hollow area instead of having a trapped section up top and a trapped section down on bottom, and it being compressed in the middle. Okay, so I've got this handle squished into a handle-ish shape, and now I get to play around and figure out which bubble or alteration I want that handle to live on. I like to make my handle and then take a minute to walk it around and figure out which section works best. I also always have one little one, and I like to emphasize that on the rim. It's just kind of a highlight point for me. And so I do try to vary. Does the handle go directly to the left of that one? Does it go directly to the right of that one? Is this one somewhere completely on the opposite side? And change that up a little bit just to add more variety to my piece. Okay, so the handle is going to go on this one. But I don't want to attach my handle just yet because I need to alter my rim. And I'm just going to hit the handle and mess it all up while I alter that rim. So I'm going to wrap this handle up so it doesn't dry out, and work on altering this rim. Okay. So I know that this is the one that my handle is going to be attached on. And I have to pay attention to where those alterations go, because I don't want one to be directly where you're going to be putting your lips. Just makes drinking from a little bit more awkward. I like to have them kind of right in front of where the handle goes and then directly across from that. So that way, if you hold it with your right hand or you hold it with your left hand, you're not running into any of those valleys right where you need to drink from. Okay, so I'm going to draw in those spots. Now those are drawn in, I'm going to go in and cut these. I don't just go in and cut with my knife. I take a little hole making tool to cut a hole at the lowest point, so that way the area at the lowest valley is rounded instead of a V. It helps prevent cracking. And then I always make sure to take my knife and cut from the inside out instead of cutting into. So that way, again, I'm working away from an area that would potentially crack. This is just a Sureform blade. I like to use it without the handle, and I'm going to use it on this edge to make that a nicer blended line. That's just a little bit nicer of a line than what I had previously. But now it is a flat, hard edge line, which is not a pleasant drinking from surface. So I go back through and refine that edge. I have, this is some window screen, just a little piece of window screen cut off, and use that to round those edges back out. Just clean up some of the mess that window screen makes. All right, so I've cut this rim, I've refined this rim, and now I'm going to take this pointed tool and just compress those valleys one more time right here. So, okay, take my chamois and refine that back out. Make this that nice, pleasant rim that you would want the drink from. All right, now that the rim is finished, I can go back to attaching my handle. All right, so this piece is going to go here. Double checking that I'm putting it where those cut marks are. I've messed up a few times and put it somewhere else. So I want to line up this handle, making sure that it is straight versus off center. I also am checking to make sure that the base of the handle is attaching at the apex of that alteration piece versus somewhere weird off to the side. I also like to look at whatever this line may be, how it comes from the foot up the alteration piece and then continue or change direction in that handle. And then the negative space within the handle and how that relates to the rest of the piece. So it's lots to think about when attaching a handle. Okay, I think that's where I want it. Take my needle tool, gently line out where it goes. Try not to drop the handle. Okay. Score within that area. Score my handle. And attach. Give it some good compression, making sure it's lined up where it needs to be. And then compressing it down into piece. And checking that negative space in that line that it's creating. Make sure that there is plenty of wiggle room for it to shrink and still be a 2-finger fold. Okay. I like to leave the edges visible. Again, I think that delineation speaks really well to the delineation of these alterations. So I don't want to smooth it completely in, but I do need to finish attaching, work out any areas that haven't been fully attached yet and finish compressing. So I use just a paintbrush to push those edges back down to meet the handle into the cup. There's a lot more refinement that goes in to those areas, making sure that it's nice and clean, that I don't have any weird bits and bobs. But I do have a hollow enclosed area here, which I don't want it to crack or explode or do anything funny in the firing. So I do poke a hole to release any of that moisture. I do it right down here at the base where the handle meets the body of the cup, because this is an area where as the glaze flows, it'll flow down this handle and rest in that crevice just a little bit, and ideally seal that little hole, because I really only need it for the bisque firing. So I've just got this little it's a tool that a friend made several years ago. It's some straight pins, and I've bent one up so that I can use it to poke a hole following the form of the base of the cup. Just a little teeny tiny, that's all it needs. And actually I'll go back and clean up those burrs, and it gets just a little bit smaller. So little tiny hole. And then the last thing that I do to my pieces is add some little slip dots to these valleys, just giving some extra emphasis to those spots on the piece. Got my slip trailer with slip in it. Just going to add some little dots. I like the way it finishes the piece. There you go. That's how I alter and finish my mugs. So hope you enjoyed the demo. Hope you enjoy the Texas Clay Festival this year. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody. And see you next time. Thanks. Bye.